So this all started after a gentleman by the name of Matt Bussey came up to me and said, "Hey, my uncle has a role in this church in Graham, and they need a little help. Do you mind if he contacts you?" I'm like, "Absolutely not. Give me a call." Lane approached me asking for some help, and what he let me know is their church had gone through a major transition. They had lost their lead pastor unexpectedly. It wasn't a planned transition. It happened unexpectedly, and that left them without any staff, and the three elders were running the church, and they just reached out for help.
And I've been a part of the leadership team at Cross Timbers Church since the beginning. In early 2017, our founding pastor basically had left in a short amount of time, and kind of left us with just trying to continue, being a foundational church and fundamental church, but we didn't really know what we needed to do.
We had to have church the next week and the next week, and no matter what, with no leadership and no staff, we were just relying on doors that he was opening for us. We reached out to probably 6 to 10 churches, and the common answer was, well, we'd like to help you, we just don't have anyone. What impressed us quickly was Pastor Curtis, marks out half the day and has me come down and visit. And so the first couple of things I asked him was, how do you have time for this? And he says, well, our volunteer culture is great. We have more volunteers than we have spaces. So I knew at that point that they had something that we really were very interested in.
When we got there, we had no idea what they needed. And we found out very quickly that a lot of people were working very hard to try to keep the kids ministry running and the services in place. So I had the privilege of being at Cross Timbers Church, and I was the liaison. All I'm doing is taking HighRidge Church DNA, system, structure, all that's in place, and just getting to replicate that. Even though they didn't have a lead pastor in place, the church actually started growing because the kids ministry was taking off, and kids were going home and talking about Jesus and bringing up memory verses and things that they hadn't done before.
We were praying for help, and HighRidge Fort Worth was praying for churches to help. We had no idea, but God did. And oftentimes there would be like, well, why are they doing that? They're doing it because they love the Lord and they want to help us. And I've never known encouragement from every level of any organization like we receive from HighRidge.
We needed somebody to guide us and kind of show us what we needed to do and how. In talking back and forth, why try to recreate the wheel? Why wouldn't we just join together and become a campus of HighRidge? We were kind of praying that would happen, and it's neat to see how they consider us friends and how we can become a family and be a part of the future here in Graham.
So when Graham reached out to us for help, I just began praying for him to be blessed. And it just clicked with Graham. And at that meeting is when they said, we'd like to become a HighRidge, what do we do? And we were both, praise the Lord, we think this is the right thing for you and us. So part of my vision is to raise up lead pastors, lead elders, to raise up sons, raise up daughters. They asked, was there any pastor at HighRidge that wanted to go to be the pastor at Graham? And I said, not yet.
I remember driving up to the building for the first time and remember thinking, man, how awesome would it be to go out there and really help this campus transition into a HighRidge campus. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Pastor Curtis's office. We were having an oversight meeting. He looked at me and said, what do you think about going to Graham? And I was like, man, that's funny you asked that. We started praying, and we were standing on a Tuesday night. A worship song came on. It was almost like the Lord started speaking to me and saying, this is your next step. This is your next season. Well, then that next night, I go to Miranda and I say, hey, I think I heard from the Lord during worship last night. And she goes, no way. Which song was it? And she said, I felt the same thing. Family members, loved ones, mentors, Pastor Jeff. All of it lined up saying, this is your next step. This is your next season.
I had a prompting of, we've got a guy that was raised in a small town, knows how to speak a Christian language that's progressive and has faith and has strength in it. I wonder if it's Pastor Zach. And so, sure enough, it was within a week that he came to me and said, the Lord spoke to Miranda and I both during worship at Young Adults. We didn't talk about it, he's telling me all this, and I'm going, this sounds like the Lord.
we're not coming up here to build a church. We're coming up here to build people. That gets me excited that, man, I'm a part of something that God's hands on. And so I think that's why everyone that's a part of HighRidge should really be excited about what's happening here in Graham, Texas.
A church plant is when someone goes to an area that we don't have a connection and they've got a burden for that area and they want to start a church there. And a sister church is when a congregation is spiritually mature, and really what they need is they just need a lead pastor, lead elder. A campus or an adopted church would be what's happened with Graham. They need to be brought in, they need to be encouraged, nurtured, fed, taught how to grow, taught life, and that's what we're doing with them. Pastor Zach is going to be the campus pastor. It's a great situation for him to have Papa Bear and Mama Church to provide blessing and covering. It's going to be a great setup. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with a number of people saved and baptized and become worshipers and get freedom through life group ministry and become group leaders themselves and get involved in missions and begin to reproduce themselves and mentor and disciple. I'm just excited to see what New Testament church life is going to look like in Graham, Texas, because the concept of strengthening people works anywhere.